Now let's look at some of the validation tools that you can use. And as we get started here, I want to show you, I set the reference in here to the XSD, and then I'll pull the XSD over here so you can see it. And so now I can validate my XML document against the XSD. And so I'll move this over and I'll show you, I'll just drag the XML document onto the VB Script tool. And you'll notice that it's giving me a hassle here about my people XML is not valid. And I'm not even going to go into that right now. But it's telling me that I'm not valid, okay? So I'm going to kill these and I'll open XML Spy. Now this is something I downloaded, a trial version off the internet. It's Altova's XML Spy. It's a fabulous tool. Let's let this open up and I'm going to show you some really cool things that you can do with this. Now notice that if I open and go out and grab my XML file, it shows it to me. And it's saying that, wait a minute, I've got a real problem with one of your statements. And so what I'm going to do is just pull this statement out. It's the same problem we were having a minute ago. And so now if I recheck it, now notice it's telling me this file is well formed. So what I want to do now is I need an XSD. So notice in this, if I go up here to DTD schema, now this is really cool. If I click on this, notice I can generate a DTD. So I'll click Generate DTD and notice I can choose either DTD or W3 schema. So you see where that's going. Say OK. Now what name do I want to call it? I want to call it XML Spy DTD. And notice I'm going to put it right out there on the desktop. And do I want to assign this to my XML document? Now notice right up here what's going to happen. It assigned that. It put my doc type in there for me. So then now I can go look down here at the bottom. There's a little tab. There's my DTD that it generated for me. So let's go back to the XML document. And now let's go to the XML file and say validate. And I can validate it, and you notice this file is valid. Well, notice how easy it is to change this. Let's take the doc type out. Let's get back to a valid file. Let's go to DTD schema. DTD schema. We want to generate a schema. This time we'll do a W3C. And we'll say OK. And we'll call this XML Spy XSD. Notice it's going to give it an XSD extension. And we're going to assign that yes. And notice it put our assignment statement in up here at the top on our root element. Now notice there's an XSD file. If I click this, notice something that's really interesting. They show it to you here in almost an Excel format. And then we can change that to see it in a browser type format. And notice this looks very similar to the XML schema that we saw earlier. So let's go back to People XML and let's validate this. And notice the file's valid. Now notice this is a really neat tool. I haven't had to type anything. I just brought my document in, created the various schemas, and then validated against them. And this is why these particular type tools are becoming so popular out there, because people don't have to do as much typing, don't have to do as much thinking. And there's one other thing that I want to show you here. Notice even on my XML document, I can show it in a grid. And so I can start to expand various parts of this. Notice wife out here. And I can keep expanding these things. Let me make all these go away. So that I can continue to see this information. And I can view my XML document and even make changes to it in more of a structured environment. So this is just one example of a tool. There's a billion of these things out there. There's a lot of them. I would encourage you to go out to Google, do a search for XML validators, XML tools, whatever, and just find one that you like and you can work in. And again, notice the number of stuff up here at the top that we haven't even gotten into yet. And we'll be back in here later for the XSL stuff. But I wanted you to see some of the tools, and I want you to understand validation and how to make this happen.